All right, what is going on, guys? It is time for another episode of the Chasing Waypoints podcast, and we are back. We're in the Back to Baja series, and we have got another special guest for you guys. You guys may or may not have heard of this, little organization, Score International or something like that. Yeah, I don't know. They've been doing some Baja races for a few years now and whatnot, but no. I hope you guys detected the sarcasm in my voice. It is no other than Andy Kirker going to be on the phone with us today. And we're going to be talking about the Score International Baja Series. We've got the Baja 400 coming up. And then, of course, as they call it, the granddaddy of them all, the Baja 1000. A little bit different this year. Going to be running backwards, starting down in Cabo, La Paz, and headed back to Ensenada, which is going to be interesting. Racers for the first time will be racing home instead of racing to the vacation destination. That is La Paz and Cabo San Lucas. This is starting to sound like a commercial. So hope everybody's having a great morning so far. Sunday. So I'm absolutely looking forward to this. Got a few questions for him. I mean, he's been pushing. This is not the first time that Andy has been on the show. He's been on the show previously, and we were talking motos. We're talking motos again. This was when they were looking at doing the rally hybrid program in Score International, but the focus is now on growing the moto class and to some success. We've talked to Daniel Velasquez, Carrera 777. Have you guys heard that episode? Talk a little bit about what is going on and all of the changes that have been going down. So today we'll be talking to Andy Kirker about some of the stuff that's been implemented, some of the changes since we last had him on the show, and what to look forward to. We get a little bit of a preview for the next upcoming races. All right, so that is enough talk. That is enough of an intro. Let's talk to Andy Kirker. Let's see if we can get him on the phone here in just a second. Start turning down the party. Make sure we got him on here. And all right, let's dial this up. Yeah, we are going to call him. And there it is.
Hey, bud.
Andy. What's going on, sir? Another day at the office?
Yeah. I had a bout of something going on, and we went camping last weekend, and we thought it was altitude sickness, but it turned out just to be a stomach bug, and so I pretty much got it taken care of yesterday, but it's kind of set me back for a bit.
Oh, it's testing the systems.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, I mean, hopefully you're on the mends, and everything is feeling a little better, at least.
For sure.
Very nice. So let's talk motos. Score International Moto Program. Last time I was doing the intro and I was saying, well, last time we had you on the show, we were talking about kind of a different program that was going on. We were trying to do some rally hybrid stuff, but now the focus is motos, bringing back the motos and just focusing on growing the class. How's that been going?
That's been going good. Are we live right now, or I just wasn't sure?
We are.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's been going great. We started this campaign probably 2 years ago when the numbers were down pretty far, and had meetings with Score and said, look, we got to make some changes. These are some of the things I see happening. These are some of the opinions I get from people, and there was 3 areas of concern that seemed to be kind of a common theme, and Score has been very open-minded and listening and willing to make changes, and they did. And so now we're seeing increases in entries and good things happening for the sport. Attitudes of the riders are improving drastically. The quality of racing is improving. Quality of competition is improving. Safety is a main thing that's improved drastically. A lot of good things.
Yeah, that's actually, for me, I mean, it's always been like one of the most important things, right? Anything racing and safety related. The previous episode, we talked to Daniel Velasquez, and we were talking even something as simple about the blue dust light now that they're running on the bikes.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Catch me up on some of the other stuff that you guys have done. I mean, I know you're up in the helicopter, you're keeping an eye on the guys. I mean, there's a lot going on.
Right. Well, again, when we started this campaign, there was 3 areas of concern. It was safety was one of them. Exposure, magazine exposure for sponsors, et cetera, was another one, and reward, like how much reward you get for prize money or recognition. So safety was the first thing that needed to be addressed, and I brought up some concerns. To score answered that immediately with the helicopter for the Motos mainly. We have 2 helicopters in the air for the race. One is a larger evac helicopter, and mine's a small spotter helicopter. And I carry an EMT with me. Actually, he's better than EMT. He's a full-on surgeon as a first responder. But when we're not responding to an incident, we're out there trying to lead or clear the path on the course and warn spectators that the race is coming through, try and scare cattle off the course, coyotes, horses. We run into farmers coming the wrong way on the course, all kinds of things that happen in Baja racing that we try to mitigate as much as we can.
Yeah. Obviously it's a very, very important aspect of it, especially with these guys on a bike. I mean, I've talked to a couple other racers, and there's something very unique. I was just talking to Jason Alosi and about something as simple as like a rock in the sand. Something that in a truck, in a car, you hit it and you bent a wheel. You had that's going to hurt, but that was the extent of it. On a bike, they're not that lucky. No,
I mean that's part of the whole thing. I've been a Baja racer and moto racer, most all my life and over a 50-year span of my career, and it's always been dangerous. It's always been a skill that we acquire. That we're the badasses of the desert. People recognize what we go through, and that's what I want to bring to the mainstream media and social media and everything, is to get the recognition for what the bike guys do. Anybody, it feels like to me like anybody can get behind a wheel and strap in and survive Baja, but to do it on a motorcycle, you're putting your life on the line. Mm-hmm. And we're busy. Every mile there's 10,000 things that can kill you along the way. So we're laser focused every inch of the way on a motorcycle.
You're intimately familiarized with every foot of that race course at any given time. I mean, by the time you're done pre-running, right? Some of these guys are spending a week down there or more doing laps. So just and my methodology for pre-running used to be run my section at least 4 to 6 times. It's not quite as necessary anymore because of the VCP's program has tightened everybody up, and so looking for advantages that you really can't take advantage of anymore isn't part of the pre-running like it used to be as much. But as far as the danger part goes, we used to pre-run. I would go my first run just to get familiar with it, and I would look for things that could kill me in the dust. That would be my first pass, and I'd take notes of major washouts or major boulders or something that if I was in the dust trying to make a pass, that I have to really be aware here, because if I hit this, I will die. So those are the kind of things I kind of take mental notes along the first pass. Second pass, you start looking for lines and places that you can pass. Third pass, you hit it at a little bit higher speed and check your marks, your notes, and making sure that you remember these things as you come up on them, and all your BCPs and that. Fourth one is like to prove your strategy is working, and I don't know. That was my methodology. Yeah. Well, yeah, and I mean, and it's a lot of homework that that has to be done, but you want to be competitive. Actually, you want to be safe, and then you want to be competitive at the same time. I mean, they're close, but obviously the safe part is the big one there.
Yeah, that's the balance. That's a tricky balance. It's hard to articulate that to especially newcomers, that how fast to race and still be safe. I mean, it is one of the most dangerous sports in the world, racing down there. There's no doubt. but at the same time, climbing Mount Everest is one of the most dangerous mountains to climb, but people are lining up to do it because they want to conquer it. And so it's what we do. We're men, or women, but we want to conquer something, and you're really not living until you're pushing yourself. And so we push ourselves pretty hard in Baja, and it's really rewarding when you finish.
Yeah. And it's the new challenge, right? For some people, it's the Dakar. For some people, it's the Baja 1000. I mean, that's pretty much, if you're into motorsport, it's kind of like off-road motorsport. That's really all you get, is the Baja as bucket list items. Obviously 500, there's a process to getting to the 1,000 too, but. Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting that there's different processes, there's different stories, there's different motivations. You have, as we've seen in the movies like Dust for Glory or Keep the Bike Moving, there's been different caliber of riders or motivation. There's guys that are top pro teams that are trying to win it overall, and then there's the guys that, just like you said, checking off their list, that want to just say they finished or just challenge themselves because, like for the 1,000 coming up in November, it's going to be at least, pretty close, around 1,200 miles long. Mm-hmm. So even after you've covered 1,000 miles, it's still 200 miles, which is like bigger than most races, So to push yourself that long, especially in that kind of terrain, you've definitely accomplished something. I mean, you are going to hurt for months afterwards.
Those subtle reminders, the when you go to pick up the bike, you may not want to ride the bike for a few weeks,
I can't imagine. I mean, I Ironman the 500 once when I was young, but back then you could ride forever and whatever. So it'd be a tough challenge nowadays for me.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't know how you guys do it, and especially the Ironman side of things, the Ironman side of the house. It just, even if it's short sections, but still doing multiple sections and at speed, you can't. Well, I feel like there's two. There's kind of like two groups in this, right? There's the guys that are down there to win the class, and then there's the guys that are down there to basically cross the finish line.
Yeah, they're affectionately known as bucket listers.
Bucket listers. There we go. Yeah. I mean, obviously it is. And then, like we said, the 1,000, but this actually, I mean, with doing the Back to Baja series and talking to some of the racers and stuff like that, this actually seems like a good spot to ask this question is the new guys, the guys that are coming into this, you've got a ton of experience racing, and then you've crossed the line and are over on the organization side of it. Tell me what the new guys should know. What's your advice to these guys?
Two things that come to mind immediately. One is read everything that SCORE puts out on their website. There's a lot of data there. A lot of questions get asked, but that information's there. Read the data, learn the rules, learn the procedures, and I mean, actually, that's good advice for anybody that's racing Baja, because a lot of these questions just keep coming up. It's like, read the fine print. Mm-hmm. But the other thing, most important, is there is a lot of veteran racers out there. A lot of us, we get hooked for life. Baja is so unique and so attractive because of its uniqueness and what we experience when we go race down at SCORE. That we don't go away. I've been doing it into my 60s, and there's a ton of Baja veterans out there that are willing to help and share advice to people that are new to the sport. I really suggest that take advantage of that. Go to the different groups online and just say, hey, I'm going to race for the first time. Anybody got any advice, or can I tag along with your team? And people will embrace the newcomers with open arms. It's a very warm, open group of people that the Moto Society or the community is.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely agree that the Moto guys, right, stick together, but then just in general, the off-road guys, that the racers, I mean, oftentimes it doesn't matter the class, I feel. So I think that.
Yeah, I agree. but there's so many isms that come with Baja that learning to race a score race. I always tell people, if you can survive the 3 of them without dying, then you're on your way to a successful career. But it's dangerous. I mean, you can't take it for granted. You have to respect Baja. You have to respect the danger for sure. There could be a car coming backwards on a course at any time around any blind corner. It's that's where the helicopter comes in. That's where the pro teams, they usually hire their own helicopters to spot for them, so they can race wide open as much as possible and not have to have that layer of caution that you really have to have in Baja. But nothing's foolproof.
No, well, still a little bit of Wild West.
Still, helicopters have to land every 2 hours for fuel. They have to possibly respond to emergencies, and they're not there all the time. So you got to have your own self-survival skills when you're racing, and it becomes an art form to go fast and survive. It's a certain art form. It's knowing when to go fast and knowing when not to. Mm-hmm. But that's stuff that as veterans we can try and pass on to the new people, and hopefully they listen and understand it enough to not get hurt the first time up the bat.
Yeah. I mean, and it's, that was actually something that we were talking with Jason, and that show will be coming up after this one. But it was interesting. And we basically says is that Baja's very patient, and you might get away with some things now, but it's waiting. I mean, there's something there. You just have to, I guess it's on you.
It's easy to get overconfident and kind of let your guard down a little bit, and it'll bite you. I mean, a lot of people get bit in the last, few miles because they're complacent, think, hey, I finished my section. I'm almost there, killing it right now. And all of a sudden, wham, they're down. It's like, are you kidding me? I've had friends that are doing rips to Cabo, and they're coming into Cabo in the last sand wash, like, yeah, we made it 1,400 miles, hit a rock and broke a collarbone.
Well, there's a statistic, I think, from the NHTSA that says that most of the accidents happen within a couple of miles of your house. So, and then I remember, I think it was, I don't know if you're familiar with the name. I think it's Don Hatz. He would do, he's a famous and very prominent Volkswagen engine builder. And that was what we always said about pre-running. So pre-running is you want to feel like you're driving home. You're not questioning where you're going to turn. You're not questioning any of it, which is kind of dangerous because at the same time, it's like what you're just saying. It's like, well, usually it's when you're almost there that the things go sideways.
You always got to pay attention. On a motorcycle, racing a motorcycle off-road, there's so many variables per mile, and you just got it. You can't lose focus of that. But I really think it's that focus that we do that keeps us alive and vibrant. It keeps your mind really busy, keeps your body really busy, because on a motorcycle you're using pretty much every muscle you have. Holding back G-forces when you're braking, holding on when you're accelerating. Every time you land off a jump, it's a squat. Every time you're just pounding whoops, it's leg day. It's a grind. Your body takes a beating and a workout, and your mind is taking a beating, and it's long time concentrating, and you're surviving because of those skills. And again, I think that sets us apart from the general public as far as we're like warriors out there. We just battled this huge war against the Baja and survived it, and just makes you feel alive.
Yeah, that's, and that's something very interesting. I mean, I've talked about it on the adventure bike side of things, and I think you're right. There's such a focus that that's it. That nothing else in the world exists. Literally can't exist.
No.
And I mean, and that's just riding home. I can't imagine, racing, right? You are literally trying to see how fast this bike will go in some of these sections, and there's nothing else.
Yeah, you forget work, you forget your family sometimes. You're down there, but you're surviving. We don't, as a society, modern society, we don't get challenged like that. And I think it's in our basic instincts to fight for your life and to fight for survival And I think this taps into that a certain way. I mean, we have lost people along the way in this sport for different reasons, through accidents or from the heat or what have you. It's part of what we take on in this challenge. But the key is to mitigate any of those dangers as much as possible. Preparation is something that I've always hammered to my teams. Is like, there's enough variables in Baja racing that we don't have control of. So there's no excuse for us to mess up on the stuff that we do have control of. In other words, our pitch strategies or our survival preparations or just the planning, the logistics of Baja. That's one of the other things that I think a lot of people love about Baja racing is the logistics and the planning, because there's so much that goes into it, especially with a live clock, that running clock that we have. Once the race is on, it's on, and everything you do wrong, the clock is ticking. So the planning and the logistics, all the stuff you can do in advance of the race, makes you a better racer and a better team. Again, there's no excuse for screwing that up. But stuff happens on the race. You got to deal with it. You got to have an open mind and adapt quickly to changing conditions, like wheels coming apart, motors messing up, silt beds that weren't there 3 days before. People come on the course. Spectators camped on what you thought was a line, and now it's not there. You just got to adapt.
Which is, a lot of decision making. I feel like I'm guessing it's going to expand to a lot of other aspects in life. It's like, okay, well, if I was able to negotiate this, I'm pretty sure I can negotiate my tough day at the office that the coffee machine wasn't working.
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel like
again, one thing that's really nice is that when you learn to compete in a say a motorized sport, especially like a Baja race, you learn all about the preparation. You have teammates, you have pit crews and things. You're dealing with people, so you always have that common denominator, the human factor, and those give you skills for business or for life. When you learn how to compete and win, I'm fortunate to have many championships under my belt in different categories, different classes, different types of racing. I attribute that all to my original desert racing career of learning how to win. You're able to carry that over in all aspects of life, because we are being compared in everything we do. We're being compared to other humans. I'm not being compared to a cheetah how fast I can run. You're being compared to other humans how fast you can run. So when you learn how to win against other humans in one sport, you can learn how to take those lessons learned and use it through the rest of your life.
The preparation, the focus. I mean, there's a lot of it to
all of it. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's been, you see the people that go down there and race, and then where they take their careers after. And I mean, it's really crazy. I mean, even though, I'm hoping it changes, right? But we've seen, Honda and the factory level, like actual factory ride at these races has been gone for some time. But I think that might, maybe coming back with, your efforts, the efforts of Score International.
They seem to be. I'm hopeful. Have dialogue with different teams and factories. The pendulum has swung, is coming back. I'm confident that we're going to see factory efforts very soon. There's new players coming in, new sponsors are coming in. Since we've started this, we've pretty much doubled the entries from a couple of years ago, which we're not at my goal yet, but we're getting there. We're close to it. Yeah. And when you look at any kind of drop in or participation, there's also been a drop in participation worldwide in motorsports in general. Mm-hmm. So it's not just Score, it's like everywhere, but certain organizations that I used to race with, for instance, like the NGPC series has grown, and I've watched their efforts, and they've been able to grow their sport. And it's doable, and we're doing it. So in spite of the economies or what have you, in spite of motorsports being down. And there's also a different kind of a generational thing. Sort of like skateboards kind of come and go, as being popular or not. My generation, we grew up with going out in the desert on a weekend and have over 1,000 entries at a district race. Well, you don't see that anymore. Mm-hmm. A couple hundred is probably a good number. But my generation, I watched our age, as we got older, I watched our age group classes in the 40s and 50s and 60s kind of grow through the ranks like a bubble. So we were, I think, looking at us, we were like the first American moto generation, and now we're aging out, but watched us go through the ranks over the years. So in popularity, there's just not that many kids, going to the motocross track anymore, or like there used to be. Yeah. So we're battling that, but realistically, other sports are growing, and then with what I think Roger's vision for the sport, which is ambitious, and I love it, and he's trying to take advantage of technology and trying to bring Baja racing into the living room of everybody, similar to NASCAR, being able to where you can watch Baja 1000 live from different cameras, from different point of views, from riders or race cars, from trackside cameras, because with the accessibility of Starlinks and satellite communications that we're having now, is going to be a reality this next season. It's going to actually, this Baja 1000 is going to be really big as far as the coverage and the exposure that racers are going to get on the world media.
I think that's that's a big one, right? I mean, the sponsors go where where there's money, where there's exposure. I mean, that's just marketing. It's basic marketing, right? They need eyeballs on their stuff, and that was in talking to a lot of people, with manufacturers and how manufacturers, what's the saying? What wins on Sunday sells on Monday.
Yeah,
that's
right.
I think that was a conversation you and I had about that we want that back, but yeah, you got to get people. You have to get them in front of cameras, right? You have to bring the competition. So
well, I said, there's three things that people are concerned about, and the safety one, which we can talk in more detail, but that was our first priority. Get it as safe as possible. And I've been racing score off and on for over 50 years. And I can tell you right now, it is more safe to race a score race today than it ever has been.
Well, let's, and that was something important that we talked, that you mentioned already, the helicopter being one, right, to help, kind of chaperone the lead riders or riders along parts of the course, especially because a lot of the bike guys, I mean, this is a very early morning proposition for them. Mm-hmm. So there may still be a little bit of blind time, but at the same time, it's still more of a controlled environment. It's local still at that area. But once they get out into the open desert, the helos are there. The blue light, what are some of the other stuff?
On the blue light, let's take a couple of these things. First of all, the helicopters, for the audience to understand, is that helicopters are not allowed to fly at night in Mexico, mm-hmm. Or any aircraft really, unless you're a commercial aircraft. But so that's an issue, that we don't have eyes in the sky during the dark. But during the daytime, the helicopters are there. We have EMTs. We communicate with other helicopters that are out, that are chase helicopters. So, we got eyes on the course quite often, but also there's times we don't, and so we're trying to increase that coverage. As the more factories come in, there'll be more helicopters out there, so that'll be good.
Yeah,
and they're coming. Second, the blue light thing. It's a great story. I happened to be watching a race coverage of the car, the car rally. I think it was like 2 years ago. Anyways, there was one blatant race car driver that they showed on TV kind of running over a rally bike, and the guy gets up limping, and apparently that was his second time that he hit a bike in that race. And I'm like, dude, and they didn't hardly even give him a penalty. First they gave him like 5 hours or something, and then they gave him like 15 minutes. And they reduced it because his sponsors bitched at the car. And so I went back to SCORE and said, did you see that? And yeah, we saw, people send us that clip and stuff. And I go, tell me we have a rule that, you can't run over a motorcycle. And they go, well, not exactly. I go, come on, we got to have a rule. And he goes, well, let's see, And I go, well, we need a rule. And then Abelardo, the race director, said, well, we do have this no nerfing rule that, like, for the Class 11s and what have you, and that's the blue light. And I go, well, let's do that. Let's change so the motos are in that category, so that it's really obvious that they are a moto in the dust, for one thing, and two is that you can't hit this person,
Yeah.
and so that's where that spawned from. So yeah, we switched everybody over to blue lights. They actually do, I think, show up better in the dust at night for some reason. It's a little bit. I guess maybe we're complacent with red lights because there are red lights are on every vehicle and brake lights in the city and what have you. But blue is pretty, kind of catches your attention. But there's another thing that we didn't really think about, but came up after it had been implemented was in a dust situation or like a silt bed and a rider may get separated from his bike and a car and a truck or something's coming and at speed and heaven forbid, but they have to make a choice of hitting one or the other. At least they know which one is a live person and which one's an inanimate object,
Mm-hmm.
So they can as if they have to make a choice, they can steer away from the blue blinking light.
Yeah. That's
so there's a safety, it's safer.
Yeah. And actually, and I got to say this is just to clarify, it's not that there was, somebody listening to Currents was like, wait a minute, you could nerf a bike. No, nobody ever wanted to nerf a bike. It's just we're visually connecting the dots now. Hey, blue light, on anything means don't come near me. Don't run up on me like you're going to try and hit me, or nerf. I should say nerf.
Right.
It's not hitting.
It lets them know that it's a soft target. Also, I have been passed a couple, very, very seldomly, but I have been passed by trophy trucks in my lifetime. And I actually got tagged by one slightly. And again, when I found out recently that there was not an actual rule that I could find anyways, mm-hmm. that said you can't, there was no penalty for coming in contact, a car coming in contact with a motorcycle. There wasn't just it didn't seem like the penalty was there or severe enough. And so now they already had these other penalties in place with the blue light rule. And so now we automatically fall into that category. There's penalties now for if you come in contact with a blue light category.
Cool. So good. So, I mean, yeah, and I remember, I remember I was racing SCORE back in the Salfish days, and I always, and I always knew that it was like what stuck in my head is that the car was responsible for the pass. So if it's car versus bike, the car is responsible for the pass. So you either go way wide or whatever it is, but if you hunt them down, or if you hit them or whatever it is, that's on you. The only thing bad about the motorcycles, I'm not going to say bad. The consideration that a four-wheel vehicle would have is that on a motorcycle, you're going to use all the course and then the 20, 40, 50 feet to the left and right of it. So you could inadvertently, the truck, the car, whatever's making the pass on the left 60 feet away. And next thing you know, they've got a bike crossing paths.
Right. And so,
hey, what's going on, guys? This is Victor with the Chasing Waypoints podcast. Hey, super quick break in the episode. Want to talk really quick about Spotify for podcasters. If you are interested in getting your story out to the world, starting your own podcast, it is super, super simple. Head on over to spotify.com/podcasters and get all of the information. It is a one-stop shop. You can edit, you can do Q&A, you can do video podcasts, all sorts of different things in one platform. They handle all of the distribution for you, so it is super, super simple and effective. So with that being said, guys, let's get back to the episode.
Part of one of the things that SCORE and I have done to make the interface of cars and bikes cleaner is trying to create better awareness. And we put out a video. I'm going to work on maybe having an updated video to make it even better. But the videos are showing passes of several examples of what it looks like when a trophy truck is passing a bike. Mm-hmm. And it educates riders so they know what's going through the mind of a trophy truck driver who's probably winning overall at the time, coming up on what it looks like when you're donking along bucket listing and not really, going fast, and you're holding up a trophy truck. This is what it looks like from his point of view and how frustrating it must be, and to please give them the respect of their own race and get out of their way. So, and also to acknowledge that they're there, because one of the things that's apparent in the video that we created is that, and this is something that I educate the trophy truck drivers about, is that we don't know you're there when you think we do. Even though there's a push to pass button, we're not looking at our handlebars. We're trying to survive the desert. We're looking far forward, and we have a helmet on and sometimes earplugs, and we don't hear the Stella going off if you're pushing the push to pass button. So recognize that the sign, that the difference between when a bike knows you're there when he's not. And so there's a great example of a quad, for instance, in this video, where he's going along around the Mike Sky Ranch area, and this trophy truck is on him, and you think, why isn't this guy moving over? Finally, the guy kind of looks over his shoulder and kind of startled, raises his hand like, oh, wow, I didn't know you were there, and pulls over immediately. So I use that video to educate both sides, what it's like from the moto point of view, that, to understand that we don't know you're there a lot of the times, even though it looks like you should be obvious. Mm-hmm. And then I also educate the bike guys on what it's like from the trophy truck's point of view, how, frustrating, and to give them a wide berth and let them get through safely.
Yeah.
And of course, stay off the side of the course until the dust clears, because when there's one, there's more. There's another one coming. Yeah,
you usually can throw a blanket over the front runners, especially in that class. I mean, I feel, they have they're unlimited, but they might as well be limited with how competitive that class is and how like one on top of the other they could be. And some of the other things that we've done as far as trying to make it safer when in regards to the trucks and the interface between trucks and the bikes. We analyze the start times. We try and a lot of times people complain about the early morning start times, but those really are safer for the bikes getting out of town, because the more we can spread the gap between the bikes and the cars, the safer it's going to be. It's going to take them longer to catch up to the slower bikes, but also getting out of town in the middle of the night or early morning darkness. You don't have all the drunk spectators out there like you do in the afternoon or mornings. Mm-hmm. You don't have, you can see with the headlights, you can see if there's vehicles coming the other way in the night. And it's just a little bit safer getting out of town when we do that. But so we analyze the spread a lot of times, and try and, give it the gap between the start of the bikes and start of the cars as much as it makes sense. And then something unique in the last couple of years that the race director has been incorporating in some of the races is having alternate courses for the bikes. And especially in the later part of the course, San Felipe 250 is a great example of that, where like in the last race, the last 80 miles was a separate bike course to the finish practically. And it's well received by all classes. Yeah, because obviously the trophy trucks are going for the win, and then the bikes are looking to make it home. So I think that's really cool, having a completely separate thing, and I could absolutely see that, because, if they're going to be pushing, right, it's going to be the last few miles. That's where every second is going to count the most, and patience is going to be a little less, the fuse is going to be a little shorter, So that's actually really cool. I did not know that you guys were doing that. I think that's awesome.
Yeah, we've done it on the last two San Felipes. The last 400. I don't think it's happening on this 400. I could be wrong, but course comes out. Map should be coming out in a few weeks, anyways. But we've been doing that. That helps. And also, when we do that, it kind of adds a little more fun to the course for the bikes, because the cars aren't pre-running on that and tearing it up as much. And so gives us a little more of a fun course to ride on.
Yeah, a little bit of a break. And then I would imagine you guys could probably do a little maybe closer to single track stuff. You're not worried about will a trophy truck fit?
Yeah, it's not quite single track because the quads fit in that category, but it's close.
Yeah.
For instance, at the last San Felipe 250, they ran over a rough section called the Mini Summit. Mm-hmm. And at the end, near the end of I should say, prior to the race starting, that section got thrown out for all the classes because they were worried about bottlenecks and stuff, except for the moto classes. We were the ones that could get through there, and I was actually pretty proud of that fact that I got to make that call. Nice. And so yeah, the bikes are badass. We can do it.
Yeah. There's a little bit of cross hard enduro in there in some of the sections. I know that there was a few people that weren't looking forward to it, but I think that's hey, it's a moto, it can do it. Well,
not only that, but I mean, this is Baja racing. It's supposed to be hard, Otherwise, it's not an accomplishment. I mean, anybody can ride in the parking lot. Listen, this is rough Baja.
Yeah. And I mean, and you can trail ride it, but don't get frustrated, because there's some people that probably breeze through that mini summit like it was another day at the park. And some people, are going to struggle, but that's just, different skill sets. It's a different mentality. It's a different thing. But how cool is it to be able to say, all these four-wheel guys, they were enjoying their cool. Starbucks.
But, we were able to fly over that S section when the bikes would come through. I got some great footage from filming up there, which is something I try and take advantage of my position, having the great seat that viewing section that I have. I film when we're not responding or doing anything that takes my attention. I film. I try and film as much as possible for the bikes, because any video of bikes racing in the desert is gold. I mean, people love seeing that, and so with the Starlinks being available, we've been working on some things that with our Mototech, Michael Foxworthy, whose real life job is all about satellite technology and what have you, works for Viasat. Mm-hmm. He helped us to develop an extended Wi-Fi system that allows me to connect to the ground stations from the air without having to land. And I'm able to get to one of the Starlinks that are on our network and push videos for the live show. Nice. And I don't know if you saw the live show for the last race, but we had some setbacks, but I was able to near somewhere around 9:00 in the afternoon or morning, I was able to push several videos to the live show, and they ran them and got to see bikes going through silt beds or pounding whoops or doing the summit. I mean, it was beautiful footage. And so I try and take advantage of that to help promote bike racing and Baja racing, and letting people see what we actually do out there. Cause that's one of the things that's really never been, or as a desert racer, you never get to see desert racers racing. There's always either a pit or the start or the finish, but to see what they're doing their battles out in the middle of nowhere, the whole Starlink thing is letting us be able to see it now.
Yeah. And and that's a very interesting point, because you're, and I definitely want to talk about this because, we have, the listeners are worldwide. So there's a lot of listeners that, maybe they've only heard of the Baja 1000. If they've heard of it, they don't know that there's 3 other races besides that. But what's interesting about what you're doing and what you're able to do with that is, you and I have both raced, and we know that there's pockets of spectators, right? They only get, then there's the occasional person in the middle of nowhere that you have zero idea how they got out there, but they're out there. But for the most part,
there's always that guy. Yeah.
Yeah. There's always that one. And then you wonder, right? Do crowd rules apply? Like, crowds don't hang out in places where it's flat. Like, usually there's something there, or they made something, or something's going on there. It was easy to get to. There's a jump, there's a hole, there's a something, right? They think that's going to be exciting, but what you're doing is really cool, right? How many people, could see into this mini summit? How many people got to see this battle taking place on some straightaway of whoops in the back where there is no spectators. That's huge.
Yeah. Regarding that mini summit, I thought there was going to be a huge crowd there. Maybe there may have been more if the trophy trucks were going through, but there was really nobody there. I was really kind of surprised when we got there. So, being able to film that and bring it to the public is, I feel very fortunate to be able to have this opportunity to do that.
Yeah, I mean that's I think that's huge, and I think it follows along. Obviously, it's square in the goal of what you're saying. Is like, okay, bring the attention to the moto guys again that it was, because I mean, I remember going to the contingency and all that stuff. It's like the class 11 guys. They walk a little funny, what they carry there. It's like, dude, how do you even? And the bike guys to me are the same. I just view them in the same way. It's like, dude, this is absolutely crazy what these guys do, and it's. And, you talk to, like, I've had a lot of conversations or more conversations with like Colton Udall, people that will ride 600 miles at competitive pace, not trail riding pace, competitive pace, and the stuff that they have to go through.
When you say the word competitive pace, for people who don't know what that means going 50, 60, 70, 80 miles an hour through the nastiest stuff. And I mean, holy crap, Colton can go so fast through that stuff. It's crazy.
Yeah, and for so long.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I mean, just and hopefully, I'm very optimistic and I'm very excited for what's coming, for the visual aspect of being able to see us do those things for long durations. Being able to have great coverage of bikes racing across the desert. I mean, seeing technique, seeing guys navigate stuff, seeing passes happen that you don't get to see is, in the older days, all you see is a result comes out that, somebody went through checkpoint ahead of another guy. What happened? Now we can see that stuff.
Yeah. I mean, that was the news, right? You were kind of like BFG relay, trying to kind of figure things out. Asking weatherman, I always remember that. It's like, dude, there's no way this guy is on the team, but he's posing as somebody on the team wanting to know where the truck is. And I'm like, no. So
and now also along with the Starlinks, we've got a live timing system that is not just a start and finish. It's going to be something like at least 10 or more spots along the course. They're going to be live feeding, live updating all the time.
Sector times. Nice.
Yes. So that's in the works now and being beta tested and should be really off and running for the 1,000.
Very nice. So let's actually, I mentioned it a second ago, but let's talk about it, right? Score International, it's a 4-race series. Bikes race all 4 races, correct?
Correct.
So what do we for the people listening abroad? What do we got? What are the 4 races?
The first one is around March, April every year. It's called the San Felipe 250, which is on the east side of the peninsula. A cool little town, San Felipe, is about 200 miles south of the border. It's usually about a 250, 300-mile loop. Very rugged, all desert terrain down there. A lot of people's favorite race of the series. For me, it's just a little too short. Because I want more. I want more of the race of the weekend. It's like it starts for the bikes. It starts at 6 a.m. and it's over. I don't know, 11 or 12 or whatever it is. It's like, oh darn, it's over already. Yeah. But that's the first one.
What's sorry to interrupt you on that one, but what's the spot? I know San Felipe's got some. So what's that terrain like? Some memorable terrain pieces. Some the like. What is it, like Matomi Wash or some of those washes where you're running in the canyons?
Yeah, there's several landmarks that people have come to learn and give them their own names and what have you. But one of them, like I mentioned, Matomi, I always refer to as the mighty Matomi. It's a huge wash with lots of history. A race has gone through there. I raced in there in the 70s. But that's one of them. That's usually the most southern wash that we do for the San Felipe 250. It's got high banks in areas. It's got a rock crawling section through it. It's good. There's what's referred to as Zoo Road, even though it's really not Zoo Road. It parallels a road that used to be called Zoo Road. It perpendicular. It crosses that road, but it's a pole line road that has notorious vicious, large whoop-de-doos in it. That's the one you always see, like just people hanging on the high tension wire towers. The spectators all over those, or lining the course right there. That's Zoo Road, which is famous. The mini summits there, which is famous. And just the terrain itself is it's true desert. It's rugged. Every bush or cactus has got thorns on it.
The trails are alive.
Yeah, they jump.
They jump. Yeah.
Yeah. It's that's a myth of jumping cholla, but there's you come too close to one, you run over its root system, and it kind of flings a little pod at you, kind of like a boomerang or something. I don't know.
Here's your reminder.
Yeah. Oh my God. I think more jerseys and bloody arms are down there than anywhere, but, and it's usually pretty warm. It can be, we use it often in the other races too, but, in March and April, it's not bad. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
The town itself has got a Malecon with restaurants all over it, and the whole town gets completely behind the race, and it's amazing.
Yeah. And it's standing room only in that town when the race comes to town.
Oh my gosh, I got videos of you can't hardly even traverse from one end to the other without you're just bumping shoulders with all kinds of people.
Mm-hmm. All right,
but the next race after that is the Baja 500, which is the first weekend in June. And recently, that's usually and always out of Ensenada on the west coast, about 70 miles south of the border, in one of the largest towns in Baja. And I think Ensenada is also named the safest town in Mexico, I've read. But one of the things that's important to understand is that the San Felipe 250 finishing position sets your starting position for the 500. So that's important
so it's like
when
qualifying.
you take the championship. So San Felipe acts as qualifying start position for the 500, and the 500 this next race coming up, which is after the 500, is the youngest race of the Score Series, is called the Baja 400, again out of Ensenada, a loop race. It is set as a qualifying time. Your finishing there sets you up for the 1,000. So it's really important to try and do well at this 400 so that you get a good starting position at the 1,000.
Nice.
And the Baja 1000 is typically always in the middle of November. And this year is extra special because normally there's two versions of the 1,000. Every couple of years, they do a point-to-point race from Ensenada all the way down to La Paz or Cabo. And then a couple of races in between that, those point-to-points, they're a loop race where it starts and ends in Ensenada. And it's mainly financial reasons because it takes so much effort for the teams to do the point-to-point that we don't do it every year. Mm-hmm. Well, this year happens to be a point-to-point one. 2023 is not only the 50th anniversary of Score, but they're celebrating it by reversing the course. Instead of it starting in Ensenada, it's going to start in La Paz and finish in Ensenada. So it's unprecedented. It's really going to be interesting. It kind of throws your logbooks out the window as far as your strategies and what have you.
Yeah. Terrain changing, the terrain is going to be easier in the south of the peninsula. And then as you come home to the challenging stuff. And
exactly.
Yeah, that's
exactly.
That's kind of a cool decision. I like that, and you're racing home.
Forward to it. and just for those that are going to the race, to be in La Paz at the start on the Malecon, it's going to be really special. It's going to be good.
Very nice. And so, we know like the Baja 500, the Baja 400 kind of share the Ensenada area, the loop race and all of that stuff. Where's the spots there? I mean, what are the memorable features or the terrain? You got some hot spots?
There's some famous sections. Most of the racing I've done is on the northern part of Baja. So you've got your start area. It goes out towards Ojos Negros, which is the middle of the peninsula. So you're going over some kind of rutted, ranch roads and different things that are not so whipped out, but more hard pack, rutted, rocky stuff. Then you get into some one of my favorite sections between Ojos and Valley T, which is I guess it's a Santa Catarina area. There's a lot of different fun terrain through there. There's the famous goat trail that is a ramp road going down from a pretty rocky section that drops into the highway to get you transition to the valley to Trinidad. Mm-hmm. There's Mike's Sky Ranch area, which is famous. I don't think we're going to be going all the way to Sky Ranch in the 400, but head in that direction. Mm-hmm. There's what we call the Crossover Road, which I forget the real name of it, but it's a 30-mile, approximately fun, kind of well-used, but well-maintained dirt road that connects the West Coast back to the middle of the peninsula. Mm-hmm. We're going to be racing on that. It's fun, flat track around some flat corners and stuff. It's really fun. And then, of course, when we get on the beach area, which is really unique to Baja racing, being able to go and race along the coast, to me, that's really special.
Yeah. What's going on, guys? Victor with the Chasing Waypoints podcast. All right. Are you looking to promote your brand to a worldwide audience on the podcast? Drop us a line at podcast@chasingwaypoints.com and let's talk. See what we can do about getting you some more ears for your company and getting the word out worldwide. I know when you start getting close, right, you start getting that seawater smell. Well, I think you sometimes, depending on the wind, you get that on the crossover road. When you're up on the higher sections, you can kind of...
Yeah, you might. Yeah. I mean, you're ways, but you do get the coastal fog coming in on the crossover sometimes. Mm-hmm. There's a section that also that from Santo Tomas, there's a restaurant called Acambaro, mm-hmm. And the owner, Juan, is really enthusiastic and a supporter of SCORE. The course usually goes towards his restaurant and leaves the highway and starts heading back towards Ojos Negros. That section between there and Ojos Negros, it's 35, 40 miles of all kinds of different terrain, and you get a lot of bang for your buck. To me, it's always been a favorite, challenging section. So, yeah, I love it all.
It's interesting, right? And that's why I kind of asked the question, because everybody has, like, there's those little areas, there's those little sections where it's just like you get into that flow and you're just a little more aggressive. You're just enjoying that ride just a little bit more than you were the last section. And I mean, that's...
Oh yeah, and the more you race it, the more you know all these different areas and know that, and you're pre-running and you're getting more familiar with it. That, you know, if you're laboring, like say you're it's hot, you're tired, and it's been a long day racing. When you're during race day, though, you know it's like you're constantly in your mind going, "Oh wow, we're already here. I'm already here." Like, wow, that 50 miles went by fast because you're familiar with it. It's like your road. It's like when you drive the same way to work every day and it's an hour-long drive or something. It doesn't seem that long because you're so used to it. You know?
Exactly. It's you're just driving home, driving to work, and it's.
But yes, speaking of that though, there's another section that just prior to coming into Santo Tomas, and it's high speed, really fun, fast, barbed wire lined. Farm road that goes, it's probably 15 miles of just fun, fast, flowy, just wide open stuff. I love it.
Yeah. That's before you get into Santo Tomas,
correct.
That last section of coast.
Leaving the coast, coming into the middle, back towards Highway 1 is just a blast. Everybody who's ridden that area loves that section.
Oh yeah. I got the opportunity to do that. Well, be it on an adventure bike, but still, it was not this last rainy season. It was a couple years ago after the rainy season. I'd never seen that area so green in my life, and hero dirt.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
I mean, it was just, on an adventure bike, it didn't matter, but just so beautiful. I mean, clouds right on the covering part of the hill's really dark, mm-hmm. and the clouds really dark, but everything just green. I mean, I will never forget that. And that's, I'm pretty sure that's the section you're referring to. And man, yeah, some of those little corners have these like berms in them. It's just like so perfect, after all the cars have gone through and they've just created these, and so, man, Yeah.
Unfortunately, though, that is a main road that the farmers and ranchers and the people who live in that area use. Even though there's a race going on, sometimes they're there, so you still got to keep your eyes peeled for looking for that glint of reflection off a windshield way ahead, or something shiny, or the dust. Little telltale signs that there's traffic coming.
Yeah. Yeah, you definitely have to leave something on the table in case you get surprised coming out of the corner. And I mean, you have to, it's not, correct me if I'm wrong. These things are being said because it's in some previous edition, things have happened, but at the same time, it's not like every single edition, every other corner, you got to worry about somebody being in there, that it is always there or whatever it is. It's just word for the wise, right? It's better to check up,
The problem is you can go through 100 corners and not have somebody surprise you coming head on. But there can be that one. And then where's that one going to occur? You don't know. There's lots of tricks to it. I'm just trying to, expound what I, experience, as far as how do you unload 50 years of Baja racing out of your head to somebody new is hard.
Yeah. And a lot of the growing, and like you said earlier, right, is seek out the people that have the experience and partner with them, talk to them, work with them. I mean, the best way to, I think the best way for people to get involved if they don't is to help another team or get on a sportsman team, and having that team and pull your knowledge and having people to bounce ideas off of and strategize with and all that. It's just really fun anyway. So it's a good way to learn Baja and get used to it before you go out and challenge it. I mean, I'm in a little bit of a dilemma when, I'm trying to grow the sport. I'm trying to get the numbers up for the motorcycles, but at the same time, at what cost? I mean, there's people that want to sign up for the Baja 1000 as an Ironman, and you can tell they really have no business being here. They've never raced anything in their life. It's like, they want our advice. They want, what do I need to do forward? And I'm like, I don't know. I hate to promote this and have something really bad happen to this guy, And so, but I want, everyone, ultimately it's their responsibility to know what they're getting into. We try to educate them the best we can. And, I try and steer them towards people that are really experienced and willing to help. And, one of these guys that happened to last year, everyone's kind of like more like, wow, this guy shouldn't be here. Well, I vetted him on the phone. I hooked him up with other people that are racing. He pre-ran with other people that were Ironmanning, and he had a successful race and turned out he was he's got a really huge following on social media, and it was really good. So, I can't be too judgy. Yeah. Well, and so, I mean, and that's, kind of in closing, right? Mm-hmm. It's very important, right? We know that the Baja 1000 is a bucket list item, and I think this is really important because it also carries into other races. But if you could just give me a quick rundown, like, okay, I want to Ironman the 1000 a year from now, 2024. I want to Ironman the Baja 1000. We know it's going to be a loop race. Just what are some of the key things that you maybe work on? Race everything I can, the gym 8 days a week, what would that look like to you, you think?
First of all, just know what you're getting into. It's not a walk in the park. It's not as fun as it looks. It is, when you're trying to Ironman, it is hard. It is hard miles. Every mile is a lot of it's really beat up. Come race day, and it's hard miles. I mean, even in my own racing, there's probably has never been a Baja race that somewhere in the middle of it have I not thought to myself, why do I sign up for this stuff? This is killing me. But you forget that as soon as it's the checkered flag waves, you're like, I can't wait for the next one. But first, it's really important to know what you're getting into. Mm-hmm. Second, if you're Ironmanning, there's two components to Ironmanning is both physical and mental. So it's really not about trying to compete for the win overall. It's not about how fast you can go against the Honda 1X team or the KTM 1X team. It's about you and the desert and conquering the Baja probably as fast as you can do it, but because if you want to try and be competitive in your class, but assuming that, anyway, any Ironman has to know that you have to pace yourself. And so the most important thing is to get in shape. And a lot of these people that are doing this aren't young either. So our stamina is best at probably, if our long distance stamina is probably best at early 40s, late 30s maybe. And that's a common age for Ironman. So work on your stamina, go down to Baja, ride Baja a lot so you're familiar with the terrain, get your bike set up for that properly. But mainly is to really understand what you're getting into and prepare for that.
Mm-hmm. Good. So there's, like you said, the mental aspect of it, the physical aspect of it, and just, it really revolves around being informed, Yeah.
Knowing all about nutrition, having, enough funds to be able to have proper support, do the proper training, because physically it's going to be very demanding, obviously. Skill-wise, probably not as important. If you're if you can ride a motorcycle at all, you can probably do it.
Yeah, but, we say that with caution.
It's going to be hard. I don't know. I'm almost backtracking now that I said that, but it's not as crucial. An intermediate rider could do it. It's not as crucial to your skill level as it is to your conditioning and your mental toughness.
Yeah, I feel like there's going to be a section or a point in time along that journey that your brain is probably going to want to switch from fight to flight, or from flight to fight, whatever it is. I feel like you're going to go into survival mode at some point. So I think that maybe the checks and balances of that.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I haven't done it so long as an Ironman that it's easy for me to forget the pain of it. But I do see these guys that are doing it nowadays that are, they're badass heroes to me. Unfortunately we lost Yanni, but he was going as an Ironman, his speed that he was going at the San Felipe 250 was ridiculous. Mm-hmm. And his conditioning was amazing. Brandon Wright, another one that's has my admiration. Just the tenacity and the speed these guys can go as Ironman is truly impressive.
Yeah.
But a lot of the Ironman, there's an elite group that are out there to do really well and compete against each other and are fierce. And then there's a lot of people that are just recognize that they're just trying to accomplish a finish, and that's great. I understand that. Just make sure you get out of the way of the trophy trucks.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and you know what? I think that comes with the situational awareness. Is just be aware of where you're at all times. And once the first truck comes, usually the trucks have spotters anyway, right? A lot of these, the trophy trucks have the lead truck, is coming usually because you see the helicopters off in the distance first.
Right.
And shortly
that doesn't work in the dark.
Yeah.
But then you see their headlights. You don't really see their headlights. All of a sudden you see
daylight,
your shadow, and then your shadow becomes like 20 versions of your shadow at different angles because they have so many lights. And it's one of the most horrifying things to ever witness. It shoots your heart rate up to 210, I swear.
Yeah. Well, I can imagine that part. Well, I remember that part. I remember in the 1600 days and the 1600 days when you'd pass a truck or a one car that was on the side of the road, and then they got back on the road, or a 7 or an 8. Some of these guys that carry a ton of lights, yeah, you're coming along, and then all of a sudden it turns daylight inside the cabin.
Yeah, one thing I want to get out there before this is over, it's really important to understand from the bike's point of view. People say, well, why don't they just get over it? Sometimes it's not easy to get out of the track. These courses develop kind of a 2-track condition. And on the edges of this 2-track, it could be lined with boulders, cactus, all kinds of things, silt, soft sand. It's not easy to transition from being in one of the lanes at speed, 30 miles, 40 miles an hour, and just turn right. It's not that easy. You have to look for a spot, and that's the traction, because otherwise, you could lose the front end and go down right in front of a trophy truck, and that's not good either. So everyone's got to be patient when it comes to that interface between the bikes and the trucks.
Yeah. And I think it needs to be said, and there's a lot of talk about it, trucks catching bikes, but I think it's just like we were talking about earlier, that, people come in, farmers, local traffic, and that kind of thing. I don't think that it's something that happens so often, that there's accidents and that there's all these things that happen. It's just because of the word and getting the word out, and people be considerate, understand where you're at, understand where your position is, understand where the lead trucks are. You have pit crew, you have people that can communicate that to you. It's just be smart. It's not like there's an issue every single race and that there's an issue every single pass. It's just
right. It may sound like we're overstating it, but because the consequences are so great when an incident does happen, your potential loss of life. So we got to make sure everyone understands that and understands, what it takes to recognize and not put yourself in a foolish position. None of this is worth dying over.
No.
And so, you could shave a half a second by blindly going through this corner. Maybe you can move further over to the full outside. We get a little further extended range of vision before you go flying around that corner. There's little things that mitigate the danger, but it's always going to be there. It's just everyone has their own, their own buffer, their own line that they'll cross or not cross. I've taken chances before. I've always prided myself on being really safe racer. I hardly ever crashed during a race, and I've survived many, many years on it. But then at the same time, I've been beat. So
it's part of the journey. Nice. Okay. Well, what in closing, what are we looking for? We already know we got the 400 coming up in a few weeks. We've got the Baja 1000 after that. Any other news? Anything going on?
Like I said, I think that you're going to see. I'm excited about the dialogues we've had about upcoming participation in larger efforts, pro teams. We've got a lot of exposure now, more than we had. And so now that the third portion of my quest is working on making the reward greater, working on prize money for the 400. We've got some vendors that are stepped up and are kicking in. I don't have anything written in stone at this point to announce yet, but we're working on it. Mm-hmm. I know for the 1,000, there's some great contingencies and prize money too. So I'm really lobbying now to try and really make the prize money better for the pro moto classes. What that does is, if there's more prize money, I believe that more pros will come. And if there's more pros there's more media attention. There's more people that want to be part of Baja. So I think that's the next challenge for me, is to work on developing larger pro purses for the pro moto classes.
Nice. Excellent. Yeah. I mean, that will, obviously it takes some of the financial burden off of the race team, it puts there's a little more on the line for them. I'm sure. And obviously, I mean, the cost to run a motorcycle is not as great as, the four-wheel vehicle. So the money, money will go a little longer way.
Right. But I don't know what it is about us motorcycle guys, but it seems like the faster we are, the less money we have. I don't know how it works that way. Probably because we spent all our life racing instead of running businesses or going to college.
That could be the.
I don't know.
I don't know.
But anyways, it's there's not we're not the big budget guys. I mean, there's not a lot of us that have a ton of money that race Baja, but what's beauty is that they can go on multi-man teams, especially in the age group classes where you can still race against guys you grew up racing against, and share the expenses at one motorcycle and split all the costs of everything. And but
it's a little bit more reasonable than having to change, $250 Heim joints, 8 of them every single race.
Right. You compare the costs. It's no comparison between a motorcycle racing team and. I mean, I would like just to have the fuel budget for one race that a trophy truck spends. They probably, for the 1,000, the trophy truck spends probably $50,000 just on fuel.
Yeah. That's an entire season and a new bike for some people.
Yeah, for sure.
That's crazy. Well, excellent. Andy, thank you very much. I'll let you get back to your day. I appreciate you taking the time to talk with us on the show.
I appreciate talking to you as always. And anytime I can talk about Baja racing, you can tell I love it. And I look forward to seeing everybody down there for the 400 and the 1,000.
Yeah, absolutely. And everybody that's done motorcycles in Baja and is familiar with the score racing, appreciate what you're doing. And more so than anything is helping keep the moto guys safe.
It's my pleasure. And it's my new hobby now to do this.
Excellent. Well, thank you, sir. Enjoy the rest of the weekend. I hope you guys are having fun up there, and I hope you're feeling better.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Talk soon. Bye.
See ya. Bye. All right, so there you have it. That was Andy Kirker from Score International. I think it's really, really cool. So it's the second time. Actually, Andy and I have had a few really long conversations about just motos and the stuff that's going down there. And everything is just positive and things are growing. So I'm absolutely looking forward to seeing how it is. Him and I are talking, and I'm like, in my mind, I'm thinking like, okay, well, how can I get down there? I want to see, actually go and spectate one of these races. I've been down there so many years, racing and going down and always in support, that I kind of almost forgot what it's like to go and just go watch a race and hang out and, go with a group of people and wake up super early. I mean, I'll never forget that in going down to one of these races and just hearing the motos so early in the day, here comes the first bike, or here comes the first truck back then, or depending on what time it was. But it's something that definitely is a really, really cool experience. And especially if you could get down onto the coast side, it gets a little bit cooler in the evenings but you wake up and that sea air and everything is just wet and from the breeze or whatever came in overnight, the marine layer, the smells, the sounds, the sights, the hanging with friends, all of this thing. So, if at some point you want to race one of these races, that it could be something that, come over and spectate, come over and watch, go to the contingency, go to the technical inspection, check it out, go and then go camp. Go find a place outside of town. I mean, my recommendation is the coast, but there's places that you can go and see and just experience what it is and what these guys go through. You'll get to see it. You don't need to be on a bike. Obviously, the best way to do it is on a bike. But if you're moto camping, if you got adventure bikes and you want to do that, you could definitely moto camp somewhere off the back of the bike, or I haven't heard the term in a little bit, but as the guys over from Moscow Moto, Pete and them came up with, Pete, Wade, all those guys, brap packing. They have a whole series, a whole thing that they're doing on that. So if you guys haven't seen that, check it out. So brap packing with Moscow Moto. And then we talked about it earlier. I didn't want to interrupt Andy, but he did mention it in San Felipe, talking about the Zoo Road thing. If you want to spend some time on YouTube and check out and find out a little bit more about the San Felipe 250 and that race, go to YouTube and search Zoo Road and Zoo Road trophy truck, Zoo Road motorcycle, and you're going to be there a while. You're going to get to see some things. You're going to get to see how wild and crazy Baja can be. You're going to get to see some other videos because of what you're watching there. You're going to get to see some of the other Baja videos and the terrain. You can see why the trophy trucks command respect and why they are the vehicles that they are and what they're capable of. You can see the terrain that the motorcycles have to suffer through and work through. A moto finish in some races, I think that there's like you trail rode it, of course you finished. Finishing a Baja race is by any mean, like no matter which way you want to slice it, finishing a Baja race is crazy. It takes talent, it takes planning, it takes patience, it takes perseverance, it takes all of that. And I say that because I know and I'm familiar with the terrain, and it is difficult. It can be very, very difficult. Like we've talked a couple of times now, Baja is patient. Baja is waiting. Baja can be very dangerous. You just need to have your head about you. You just need to work on you. And what do you do? What do you do when your brain switches into survival mode? You know, are you ready for that? You know, what are you going to do? There's a lot to it. You don't even need to be racing to be doing that. You could be pushing yourself 200-300 miles, you know, in a day, wanting to ride, wanting to get to a certain spot, you know, and at some point you may switch into that. My hands hurt, my legs hurt, I'm done. I want to stop. I'm not going to stop. What am I going to do next? You know, so I don't know if that's a bit dramatic or not, but you know what? There's nothing like riding in Baja. As a friend of mine has on Instagram, it is better in Baja. We agree. So anyway, with that being said, guys, remember, it'll make sense when you get there. Enjoy the ride. All right, that is a wrap for the Chasing Waypoints podcast this week. Hope you guys enjoyed the show. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you like what you heard. We are available on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and a bunch of others. Also, follow us on social media. You can find us on Facebook under Chasing Waypoints, Instagram Chasing Waypoints _official, and of course, the YouTube under Chasing Waypoints. Hope everybody has a good week. We will see you guys for the next episode. Remember, shiny side up, and don't forget to tag us. We want to see where you guys are riding and what you guys are up to. Have a great week.